Radha Radha everyone. Today we are going to discuss the Shrimad Bhagavatam Mahapuran, Canto 1. So before that, let's do the invocation. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Alright, so let's do a brief recap of what happened in the previous session. So in the previous session, we saw Yudhishthira's virtuous reign, which was marked by peace and prosperity under Krishna's guidance. Also, we have seen that Krishna left Hastinapur after spending several months there, and as he prepared to leave to Dwaraka, he sought Yudhishthira's permission, and which he gave, and there was a very emotional farewell with the Pandavas and Kuru women restraining their tears, overwhelmed by Krishna's departure. The Kuru's women reverence for Krishna, praising his eternal nature and divine acts. So we learned how they were, talking among themselves that, he is that ultimate incarnation. So he's Vishnu himself, he's Narayana himself. So Krishna's journey to Dwaraka we discussed, where while he was going towards Dwaraka, he received many gifts from people, and while he paused and on the way, and then he offered his prayers at the dusk. So once he came, we discussed how the joyous homecoming of Krishna to Dwaraka, where he blew his conch, Panchajanya, soothing the hearts of his citizen who rushed to greet him with love and gifts. People of Dwaraka, and where Krishna's family joyfully welcomed him, how he met his parents first after meeting every citizen. Then he went and met his wife and the children. So we did all of that in the last session. So let's proceed to the next chapter. So in this chapter, we are going to discuss about the birth of Parīkṣit. So if you remember in the previous so many chapters, it was building up to this point of how Shukha Muni, the detachment of Shukha Muni, we discussed about that, and then how Ved Vyas came to write the Shrimad Bhagavatam. We learned about that, how Narada Muni, inspired by telling his story, that we discussed, and then we discussed about the Ashvatthama, how he killed the sons of Draupadi and her brothers, and how the revenge was taken. We saw how Kunti was praising Krishna and was asking for trouble so that she can always remember him. We learned about the Uttara, how Krishna protected Uttara. So we are going to learn a bit more on this chapter in the birth. So that we covered, and then we saw how Yudhishthira was sad and how Krishna took him to Bhishma. Bhishma taught him the art of, how to rule a kingdom, how to follow dharma, everything. And then how these things were happening. So now let's continue from there. So Shaunaka Muni again asked, so we know that Krishna has left, right? So he asked that how now you've already told that the unborn child in Uttara's womb, who was almost destroyed by the terrible Brahmāstra released by Ashvatthama, was saved by Lord Krishna himself. So now we wish to hear about the birth and deed of this great soul, Parīkṣit, and who received this true knowledge from Shukha. So we want to know. We now have all our questions, previous questions answered. Now we want to know that how Shukhamuni came about and told this story of Shrimad Bhagavatam to King Parikshit, and how was he born, and what was his deed, and how did he die, and what happened after his death. So if you find it appropriate, kindly narrate this to us. And then Sutta begins that says that the King Yudhishthir was extremely happy. He had everything, all the riches, his kingdom. He continuously performed all the yagnas as per the Vedic rituals. So all the gods were happy. His kingdom was happy. He took care of his subjects in every way, like how a father takes care of the kingdom, of the children, and his wife and his brothers were devoted to him. And he enjoyed the sovereignty of the Bharatvarsh, which is also called as Jambu Dweep, and his fame even reached heaven. So all this was there, but he was actually not interested. He had all the riches, everything, but he had that detachment because he if we see the previous chapter also, he felt personally responsible for whatever happened. So that, prevented him from enjoying it. Plus, he was also attached to so much to Krishna because for the ruling itself, also Krishna was guiding him for few months in the initial period. So and he was all Krishna was always there guiding them during the war and before that. So his mind was always attached to him. So he was kind of detached from all this worldly thing. So he found no delight in them, just as hungry soul finds no satisfaction in anything other than food. So then the story continues that after the Ashwadama released his Brahmāstra, and the baby in the womb, we heard that Krishna took a small form, and he entered the Uttara's womb, and he was protecting. So now we are going to discuss the perspective of the child, how the child was seeing Krishna. So he's saying that the being while being scorched by the fire of Ashwathama's Brahmastra, the unborn hero Parikshit saw a dazzling being within his mother's womb. So he was witnessing everything, how Krishna was protecting. The being was small, the size of a thumb, but very beautiful, dark complexion, and dressed in yellow robes that shone like lightning. He wore a brilliant golden crown and was none other than Lord Krishna. The Lord had four long, graceful arms with golden ornaments, and his bloodshot eyes reflected his determination that he is going to protect this baby from Brahmastra. So, in one hand, he held a mace. It's like a this is the mace. Okay, so he held a mace which was glowing like a fire, and he waved in circle while revolving around the child. With his mace, Krishna dispelled the fire of Brahmastra just as the sun clears away the morning fog. So he made sure that the Parikshit was safe. And the unborn child watching all this wondered who this extraordinary being was. Who is this? And what is happening? What is this light? What is this? Who is this beautiful person? Then once, after quenching the fire, Krishna disappeared from the womb and leaving the 10-month-old child gazing in awe. And when the favorable time came, when all the celestial configurations ensured noble qualities, he was born. So when he was born, the king Yudhishthira was overjoyed at the birth of the child, and he arranged for Brahmanas to chant hymns and perform rituals. And just before the cord was cut, the navel string was cut, Yudhishthira ensured that he actually gifts, no, give gifts, distributes gold, cows, lands, villages, horses, everything at the appropriate time, just before the cord was cut. And pleased with this king's generosity, the Brahmana said, O jewel of Paras, by divine grace, this noble lineage of Purus, which was on the verge of extinction, has been saved by Lord Vishnu through this child. So they were now, they were all, blessing the child.
They were very happy. And then they said that this child will be known as Vishnu Rata, meaning one saved by Vishnu. His fame will spread far and wide, and he will be a great devotee of Krishna and an exalted soul. Yudhishthira with his with this. So now Yudhishthira actually asked. So when they said that he will be a great devotee of Krishna and his fame will spread wide and far and he will be an exalted soul, Yudhishthira asked, "Will this child uphold the noble reputation of royal lineage?" So to answer this, now the Brahmanas started praising him that different qualities that this baby will bring forth and will possess. So they're saying that, O Yudhishthira, this grandson of yours will protect his subjects like Ikshvaku, the son of Vaivaswata Manu. So we know that Ikshvaku lineage was, after the Krishna he told in Bhagavad Gita, right, that he told this to Manu and Manu told this to Ikshvaku, the noble kings of Ikshvaku lineage. So he says that even Ram Bhagwan was also an Ikshvaku. So he says that he will be like that. He will protect his subjects like Ikshvaku, and their qualities of kings that belong to those lineages will are they prioritize the welfare of people, ensures justice and fairness, acts as a guardian and a selfless protector of the nation. They rule with Dharma, ensuring peace and prosperity and security for all. And he will be as truthful and devoted to the Brahmanas as Sri Rama, the son of Dashrath. So again, see, they are saying that he's he will be like Ikshvaku, Sri Ram, and he will be as generous as King Shibi. So, who was King Shibi? So he was a very generous king. And there's a story that he was so generous that once Indra wanted to take a test, so he ordered, he actually transformed himself into an hungry eagle, and also Agnidev accompanied him, and he disguised himself as a helpless dove, and he flew to his court one day, the dove, chased by the hungry eagle, and the dove surrendered at the feet of King Shibi. So King Shibi caught the dove and took took it under his protection. So now eagle wanted to eat him. So eagle said that give me my food back. So he said no. Now he has taken my my refuge, and I have to help him, so I cannot give. So instead you can take, I will give the equivalent of my flesh, equivalent of the dove's weight, and you can have my flesh instead of the dove. So the eagle said, so be it. And then they arranged a balance, and they put the dove on one side, and King Shibi started removing his flesh to a point that the every time he's putting his flesh, the dove's weight was lighter. So, I mean, more heavier. Sorry, dove's weight was more heavier. So he kept on putting more and more flesh to a point that he said, "Okay, I'm going to put all my body there, and you can eat all of me." And then, you know, pleased by his generosity and his commitment, Agnidev and Indra came to their celestial forms and blessed him with immortality and fame. So, so he will also be, King Parikshit will also be as generous as King Shibi, and he will be heroic like a lion, as dependable as the Himalayas, as enduring as the earth, and as compassionate as a parent. So next, they further says that he will be famous as a Bharata, the son of Dushyanta, and as dedicated to sacrifices as great kings of the old. So the even the Mahabharat was one of the greatest epics of India. Also derives its lineage from its name from the lineage. And this Bharata was one of their elders. So he was also from the Kuru dynasty. The Kuru dynasty descended from Bharata, and also the he was a mighty and just ruler who expanded his kingdom through his strength and wisdom. And India, actually, the entire land of India came to be called as Bharatvarsha, was also because of that. So we basically belong to the Kuru dynasty. And then they further says that he will match both Arjuna in archery, and another Arjuna, which is called Kartivirya Arjuna. So he was a very powerful king from Treta Yuga who was blessed by Lord Dattatreya and immense strength and as fierce and unconquerable as the ocean. So as fierce as fire and unconquerable as the ocean. So, in his even mindedness, he will resemble Brahma. In his kindness, he will match Lord Shiva. And as a supporter of all beings, he will be like Lord Vishnu. And he will perform many Ashwamedh yagnas. So, basically, he's saying that he will also follow all the rituals and everything, and he will keep his kingdom as happy. So that was what the question of Yudhishthira was will he be a good ruler? So he's saying that he will perform many Ashwamedh sacrifices and he will care for the elderly. He will be steadfast as Bali. So we know about this, Vamana avatar and how he kept his word and he allowed Vamana, the Lord Vishnu, to put the last leg on his head. So and he will be as devoted to Krishna as Prahlad. So, and then finally he says that he will emulate Krishna's high-mindedness and virtues and be as generous as King Rantidev. So King Rantidev was also a king who one but why he was so famous was he was also very virtuous. I mean, he was fasting for 48 days and he was very hungry. And when he was about to break his fast on the 48th day, a series of hungry and thirsty individuals came, and he actually, without any hesitation, gave away all his food and all the last drop of water, choosing to endure suffering enduring suffering for himself rather than denying another's need. So that is how Parikshit also will be. His selfless act pleased Lord Vishnu, who revealed that all those he had helped were divine beings testing his virtue. Rantideva's generosity demonstrated that true greatness lies in serving others without expectation of reward. Then also they say that he will be as pious as King Yayati. If I just say all of this, he will be like Grantide, he will be like Yayati, will never understand, the virtues that he carries and the virtues that, gods love. So that's why I just did all these research and I found these stories and I'm bringing this to you so that it becomes more beautiful when we are saying this, when we are discussing this. So he says that as the King Yayati. So King Yayati was also a great king. He was actually cursed by Shukracharya and he became old. And because of that, he was very sad. So one of his youngest son called Puru, he actually willingly accepted old age so that Yayati could continue enjoying worldly pleasures. And then Yayati continued indulging in luxuries for thousands of years, but realized you know, the fruitlessness of this that no matter how long we live, no matter how many times with so many desires we can come back again and again and again, but there is no use because the desires are something which is never going to get quenched and it is just futile running behind them. So he finally understanding that he renounced all pleasures, he returned his son's youth back to him, embraced asceticism and attained spiritual enlightenment, which is the purpose of any jiva. And his story teaches us that true fulfillment comes not from indulgence, but from inner wisdom and renunciation. So he will also be like, that means he will be someone, Parishit will be someone who will understand, who will be, who will attain spiritual realization, and he will be someone who will not be, enjoying pleasures for the sake of pleasure. He will be pious and he will know his limits and he will be full of knowledge. And then he says that he will be the progenitor of a line of great kings. He will subdue Kali. So this story probably will be coming that how he actually caught hold of Kali and he was about to kill him. So that will come. So, and then he will uphold righteousness on earth. Upon learning of his death at the hands of Takshaka, so the Brahmins also, told Yudhishthira about how he will learn about his death at the hands of Takshaka. because of a curse by a Brahmin son, and he will renounce all the worldly attachments and surrender to Krishna's lotus feet. So I actually searched for how long before this incident happens that King Parikshit ruled Yudhishthir after ruled Hastinapur after Yudhishthir and the other brothers left Hastinapur and they renounced everything. So they actually ruled for 60, I mean, King Parikshit ruled as king for 60 years. So after speaking about the child, so yeah, here they also said that he will hear about the truth of the self from from the sage Shukha on the bank of Ganga, and then he will leave his mortal body and he will attain liberation. So after speaking about the child's future, the Brahmanas returned home after receiving their gifts. This child was called Parikshit because he constantly searched for the divine being he has seen in his mother's womb. Originally, his name was Vishnu Ratha, but he looked for that divine being. So Parikshit. So Pari means, Parisar, he's looking at the surrounding, and Ikshit means to search. So somebody who is searching for something. So he was always longing for him in his thoughts. And he was raised lovingly by his grandparents. And he grew swiftly, and like how moon becomes bigger and brighter each day in the first half of the lunar cycle. So in during that period when King Parikshit was growing, Yudhishthira wanted to perform more sacrifices. Also because he wanted to gain a lot of good virtues by performing these things. So he decided to make up for the war's devastation by performing a horse sacrifice, Ashwamedh Yagna, but he lacked sufficient wealth to fund the rituals. So we know that Krishna has left and they were all ruling, and now Yudhishthira wanted to perform more sacrifices, but yeah, Ashwamedh Yagna, would cost actually billions of dollars today in terms of logistics because it needs, we have to call these people, esteemed people, and we have to gift them. So they should be really, really, you know, well off for to conduct these yagnas. So it will require military campaigns, grand donations. So only the wealthiest and the most powerful emperors, such as Lord Rama, Emperor Yudhishthira, and Samudragupta could afford it. So he has done it previously, but right now he is actually lacking the wealth to do it. So then he seeks Krishna's help, and Krishna actually points him and he says that go north to this particular place where there was a king called King Maruta who performed a grand yagna, and out of his generosity he left a lot of he even made the altars with gold. So that kind of riches what that king had, and he left lot of riches there. And it's a treasure, so you can go and retrieve it and then you can perform your Ashwamedh Yagna. So they went there and it was completely abandoned there. So Bhima actually led the party and he retrieved everything. And after that, Yudhishthir performed three more Ashwamedh Yagna. And Krishna was obviously invited to these sacrifices. So Krishna came, he helped the king conduct them with the assistance of the Brahmanas, and he stayed with Pandavas for several months to please his relatives. And after fulfilling his purpose, this time, I mean, he took leave of Pandavas, Queen Draupadi, and their family, accompanied by Arjuna and the Yadav chiefs like Uddhava and Satyaki, who was always there with him. They will come and go with him. But this time he actually took Arjuna also. He accompanied Arjuna and he left to Dwaraka once again. So that actually finishes the chapter 12, which is about the birth of King Parikshit. So anybody has any question? Okay, so let me proceed to the next chapter. So this chapter actually deals with the departure of Dhritarashtra and his wife Gandhari for the forest at the instance of Vidura. So now, who is Vidura, right? So Vidura is actually the the brother of Dhritarashtra, but the mother was not from the royal lineage. So how it is we have discussed in the previous session about the great great grandmother Satyavati and her two sons. One was Chitrangada and another is Vichitravirya. So she had two sons who were the sons of Satyavati and King Shantanu. So King Shantanu already had Bhishma as his son, but we know about the condition that she put forth to marry Shantanu, that Bhishma cannot become the king, her sons will become. So, but her sons prematurely died and there was no heir to the throne. So, Satyavati also had another son called Ved Vyas who wrote Bhagavatam. So, she invoked him through the one mantra that he gave, and it's there's this process has a name. Actually, I forgot the name. Someone Aniyog or Viniyog. Yeah, Viniyog. So this process is used by people of, these kingly people or these dynasties where if you don't have an heir, you can call upon these great sages and ask them to, you know, bear a child for the lineage to go ahead. So she requested Vedvyas and he was ready. So the Vichitravirya and Chitrangada who died, they had like one wife each, right? One is one is Ambika and another is Ambalika. So Ambika gave birth to Dhritarashtra because when she went, she closed her eyes, so he was born blind, and Ambalika turned yellow, so Pandu was born, but his health will always be such that he'll always get sick. He was very strong and valorous. He was very good at archery, and he has conquered lot of countries and lot of kingdoms. But he will most more than often he will get sick. That was his nature because of this incident. And then when Satyavati will always inquire, will I get a good heir to the throne? So they will say that this happened and this happened. I closed my eyes, I turned yellow, and all of that. So she actually told Ambika to go one more time to Vedvyas. So she, not being not interested, she actually sent the maid, and to the maid, the third son Vidura was born. So Vidura had no conflict. Because he was son of the maid, he is not the heir to the throne, so nobody was jealous of each other or any things. So actually, Dhritarashtra really liked him. So now, what happened was Vidura was really a pious, gentle soul who followed Dharma. So when Krishna actually asked for the land, villages, 5 villages, Krishna to Duryodhana to avoid the war. Duryodhana said that I'm not going to give even, a land which is equivalent to a tip of a needle. I'm not going to do that. So at that moment, Vidura actually protested and said that this son of yours is going to cause the end of this lineage. And he was very vocal. And he has always been vocal about, the bad actions of Duryodhan. So this time Duryodhan did not like it. He insulted him very badly in front of everyone and asked him to get out of the country. So, being very sad, and Dhritarashtra also didn't say anything because he was already so much attached to his son. And even though he knew that this was not right, he didn't say anything. So he left, and he went on for a pilgrimage for his own, self-realization. And he met Uddhav on the way, and he's asked Uddhav that, can you guide me to the, whom about this knowledge of the self and all. So he said that I am not your guru. Your guru is Rishi Maitreya. So Sage Maitreya will help you. So then he went and found Rishi Maitreya. He asked questions and they had a conversation. I think it will come ahead. So, and he learned a lot. So that's what he's saying, that having completed his pilgrimage and learned about the truth of the self from sage Maitreya, Vidura returned to Hastinapur. So he had now gained all the knowledge he had sought, and he no longer had any unanswered questions. And maybe because, and before he could ask all these questions, he already had, whenever we discuss about these knowledge, about whenever we discuss about the self realization or any knowledge related to God, actually what happens is our heart becomes full of devotion, and this knowledge actually purifies and removes all you know these smoke like ignorance. So so when he was asking these questions to Maitreya, his heart became full of devotion to Govinda, and because of this deep realization, he did not further ask any questions, and he now wanted to return, so he returned. So now, when he came, everybody welcomed him with immense joy. Pandavas, Dhritarashtra, Yuyutsu. Yuyutsu was Dhritarashtra's son with another maid. Sanjaya, Kripacharya, Kunti, Gandhari, Draupadi, Subhadra, Uttara. Kripi was the Dronacharya's wife, and many others came to greet him. So he left even before Mahabharata war began, and he came afterwards. So he know that a lot of people died. So now everybody, when they saw him, they became overcome with emotion. They embraced him and exchanged warm greetings, shedding tears of love, after being separated for so long. So Yudhishthira actually made him comfortably seated, gave him food, water, and he actually wanted to hear about his journey. So he asks Yudhishthira asks Vidura, and he recalls that how they cared for Vidura had cared for them like a guardian, protecting them from many dangers such as poisoning and fire. So Vidura was always, warning these people, Pandavas about the plots that because he was around and he knew about these things. So I think he was also the minister of Dhritarashtra when he was the king. So he knew about all these things. So he gave them subtle hints, and he saved them. So that's what he was recalling. He says that he then asked how he has managed to survive. Where did he go? And he says that devotees like Vidura, their presence sanctifies the holy places, which may have been defiled by sinful acts. So he's still thinking about his own acts, and he considers himself responsible for Mahabharata war. So he then asks about, did Yadavas? So in your, you must have definitely went, gone to Dwaraka, and actually during this time, Yadavas actually perished. So they killed each other, and Krishna has also died. So, but Yudhishthira did not know about this incident, but Vidura knew about it, but he actually remained silent when Yudhishthira asked, asked about Yadavas and Dwaraka and inquired whether they were doing well since they revered Sri Krishna as their supreme protector. So he actually remained silent to spare, unnecessary grief to Yudhishthira and his family, and he chose to live with them in Hastinapur for some time, serving his eldest brother Dhritarashtra. And also Vidura was the incarnation of, he has been cursed, that is Yama. He was the incarnation of Yama, and even Yudhishthira was also an Amsha of Yama. So when Vidura actually leaves his body, he actually sits in the meditation, he converts himself into energy form, and he merges into Yudhishthira. That's how he leaves his body. So, and so that is what here, when Vidura is here, Aryama, one of the 12 sons of Aditi, who took the responsibility of punishing evildoers as Yama, the god of justice. Yudhishthira, having reclaimed his kingdom and witnessed the birth of his grandson, ruled with supreme splendor. So he has done already all the sacrifices, again, all the riches, everything. His kingdom was all fine, happy. So now he witnessed the birth of his grandson. Now that he has witnessed that, he ruled, and they were kind of, there was a period of peace in their life, and they were trying to enjoy that peace. And in the process, actually, they forgot, they lost the focus on their spiritual path. And seeing this, Vidura actually spoke to Dhritarashtra, warning him that this time, his time in this world is coming to an end, which is Dhritarashtra's and himself, and he urged him to prepare for departure. And he reminded that death is inevitable and nobody can actually escape it. And he explained that when death comes, we have to leave everything behind, even the most cherished things. So mm, do not get attached to all of these things that you think is yours, including family, wealth, and possessions. He urged Dhritarashtra to reflect on how many people have died in this, that you considered yours. And he pointed out that despite his old and age and frail condition, how are you able to still live in the house of people that you once considered enemy? How, could he spend, how he could depend on the food given by Bhima, whom he had actually plotted to kill once. And he's asking that, why is the Drashtra still clinging to life, relying on those whom he had wronged by setting their house on fire and humiliating their wife? So why he's not renouncing, why these thoughts are not coming to him even at this stage when he's about to, at the end of his life. And he says further that it is foolish to continue living in a body that has become weak and fragile, and sooner or later you have to discard this body. And he advises him to free himself from the worldly attachments and leave his body uh, in solitude away from his family, because as long as he's there with his family around, this he will he will always be attached. So, and because he has never even tried to detach himself from these things, he has to leave this place and take sannyas. So he explained that those who either through self realization, that is, they have practiced, they have sufficient sadhana, or some they have done gyan yoga, some kind of yoga, and they have realized their true self through or wise counsel, you know, renounce worldly life and surrender to Sri Hari, they are the ones who are most fortunate. And they say that, secretly leave for the north, as the future would bring nothing more than decline in righteousness. That is, he knows that Kali Yuga is coming. And hearing Vidura's words, Dhritarashtra finally awakened to the truth. Yeah, said, what am I doing with my life? And he cuts the ties of affection and attachment. And he has nobody to, look forward to. And he renounces and everything guided by Vidura. And Gandhari, devoted to him, also chooses to follow him to the forest, into the forest, and determined to remain by his side. And unaware of their departure, when the next morning Yudhishthira comes, and as customary, he always comes and pray, take their blessings. They saw that nobody's there. No, neither Dhritarashtra was there, nor Gandhari was there, and Vidura was also gone. So now Yudhishthira became very worried. He was like, what happened? Where did they go? And he has been, now he started missing. Yudhishthira started missing. He doesn't know. They didn't even say anything that they are leaving. And fearing that they might have thrown themselves into the Ganga out of despair, Yudhishthira lamented their absence. Now he started becoming very sad about the whole process. He recalled how, after their father Pandu's death, his uncle had raised and protected them, like both uncles, right? And both Dhritarashtra and Vidur had raised them, and he was, he asked Sanjay also that, do you know where they went? And he was also speechless, unable to respond, and he had no idea where they have gone. And so yeah, so next is when in that despondency, actually Narada arrives. So when Narada arrives, they goes out, greets him, and offer their respects with great reverence. And then they ask, that, where are they? So we know that Narada is the third avatar of Vishnu Bhagwan. So we go and ask, where are they? And they ask that, his heart was troubled. Yudhishthira's heart was troubled, and he also inquired about his aunt Gandhari, who had always been known for her penance and devotion, that where are they? So, and have they, killed themselves? Have they went into the waters of the Ganga, and he pleaded Narada that only you can help us, cross this endless ocean of grief. I'm not able to control this. I don't know what to do about this grief anymore. And to this, Narada says that do not grieve for anyone. He says that this entire world moves according to the will of the Supreme Lord. It is He who brings people together, and it is He who separates them at the appropriate time. And the rulers of all worlds, just bow before Him, and no one is beyond His command. So, and then he actually says, he gives two anecdotes of how we are. He says that just as oxen are controlled by ropes through their noses and serve their masters, so too are human beings. We actually feel that we have free will, but free will comes to those people only who have, uh, who are free, in the sense that if we want, our freedom is still a point, like if we want to have a tea or a coffee, we can choose among that, provided the ingredients are available. That's the only free will we have. But the true freedom actually comes when we align with our actions with the great, larger cosmic reality, and we surrender. Then that is where we understand that the true, free will is actually God's will. So everything happens according to His will only. So that is what he's saying here, that so to our human beings, they're bound by their duties, follows the path laid out by divine scriptures. And then he's saying again, another example is, just as children's toys are arranged and scattered by the hands of a player, so too do living beings come together and part according to the will of the Lord. So there is no point, and especially, Yudhishthira is already kind of detached from these things. So he's saying that be free for yourself from this distress of not knowing how your uncle and aunt are faring. They are not helpless, nor they are lost. And he then tells about, and he also says that some are, mm, people, we are all placed at the right time and given the right job, and we should focus on our duties as a service to God. So he says that some people are born as kings, some are like sages, some are servants, yet all worship the same Supreme Lord through their respective duties. And then he says their whereabouts. He says that Dhritarashtra, along with his brother Vidura and his wife Gandhari, has gone to a hermitage south of the Himalayas. He said, already Vidura said to, ask them to go north. So they have gone to the Himalayas. And there they are living in a hermitage, that is some ashram at the south of the Himalayas, where the Ganga splits into seven streams for the pleasure of seven great sages. That place is known as Saptasrota. And he continues that the Drashtra now, bathes in the holy waters 3 times a day, morning, noon, and evening. He performs sacred rituals, offers oblations into the fire as prescribed in the scripture. And then he says that he is now living only drinking water. His mind is peaceful and free from worldly desires. And he sits in meditation for hours completely still. So tomorrow we are going to discuss on meditation and the samadhi aspect of Bhagavad Gita. So he's saying that he sits in meditation for hours completely still. He has withdrawn his senses from the world, controlled his breath, and fixed his mind on Lord Hari. In doing so, he has freed himself from the influence of material nature, which is sattva, rajas, and tamas. So we understand that we are not the doers. It's the gunas that actually influences our body to, or our mind or our senses or our intellect to think in certain ways. So he says that he has freed himself from these influences of the material natures, And then he says that he will actually in 5 days cast off his body, and it will be reduced to ashes. His hut will catch fire when he's sitting in meditation there, and his devoted wife, who will stand outside, will also enter the flames, following her husband into the next world. So now, hearing this, Yudhishthira's heart grew heavy. Narada then spoke of Vidura, watching his extraordinary event, that Vidura will also witness this, and Vidura will feel both happy and sad because he's lost his brother and his sister-in-law, and happy because he's going in a state of meditation, and he's cut his ties, and his mind is now established in Sri Hari, so mostly he'll be liberated. So, with no attachment left in his heart anymore, he will once again set out to the pilgrimage, on a pilgrimage to sacred places, walking alone on the path of renunciation. And that is when, Yudhishthira also meets him one day, and actually, Vidura does not go near, but he decides to sit under a tree and, decides to leave and infuse himself with the body of Yudhishthir. So, having said this, Narada, along with his son Pura, ascends to the heavens. He leaves, and Yudhishthira, having heard everything, lets go of his sorrow and accepts the will of the Lord. So, this actually ends the 12th and 13th discourse of the glorious Bhagavad Puran of Canto 1. So, thank you again for this lovely opportunity. Because of this, I'm able to learn myself and also share. So, thank you so much. So, does anybody have any questions?
All right. So I think if nobody has any questions, we can mm, say bye for the day.
Yes, thank you so much. See you all tomorrow then.
Yes. Tomorrow we'll discuss on mostly the 6.20. So I'll be taking the class. So stay tuned.
Okay. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.